Hi, everybody. Charlotte has decided that she would like to feature again in today's podcast. So welcome back, my fellow peanuts, and welcome to anyone who is new to my channel or to this podcast. Now, this podcast covers true crime cases that may not be suitable for young listeners. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. I hope you guys enjoyed my last episode on Eileen Wuornos, Eileen Wuornos. She was quite a complex person, and it was a really hard podcast not to have an opinion on. So I hope everyone enjoyed my thoughts and the episode. Today, I am doing another episode for one of the most important people in my life, my wonderful and incredible best friend. She was my matron of honor at my wedding. Thank you so much for everything you do in my life. You are absolutely amazing. I cannot imagine life without you. I can't imagine doing life without you. We have the best time, and you are I cannot compliment you enough. You are the one that comments on my podcast. You are fabulous, and I absolutely adore you. So thank you so much for being my best friend. Charlie says hello. We may feature Frankie and Oscar today, but they are sleeping on their beds, so not really sure. It's just me home by myself today. She's being very demanding, so I apologize if sometimes I have to pat this one. Today we are featuring our two Snoopies. I have quite the Care Bear collection. So every week we're going to feature a different Care Bear. Today I got a new t-shirt. It's got Spike. You can't really see it's her. It's got Spike, which is Snoopy's brother. So the brand Butter are doing a crossover with Peanuts, but it's featuring heavily on Spike, who is Snoopy's brother. I have done my podcast before where you've seen Marbles, and obviously it is featuring my drink today, which is a Coke Zero. So I hope you all are prepped and ready, and we are going to have a fabulous podcast. So give me one sec, guys. Alrighty, let's get started. So today's episode, we are going to be talking about Paul, Bernardo and Karla Homolka. I believe that's Homolka. They are called the Barbie and Ken murders. It's sometimes what it's called, but we're shifting away from the USA today, and we're going to its neighbor above, to Canada. So let's get to it, guys. If you do want to watch a documentary, there is one called The Barbie and Ken Murders. It was really good. It's really thorough. Before the headlines, though, before the horror, there are two children, naturally. Two seemingly ordinary kids that one day their worlds would collide and spiral into what's really known as one of Canada's most infamous crime stories. To understand the darkness that followed, we're going to take a first look at where it all began. So we've got Paul. So he was born on August 27th in 1964 in Scarborough, Ontario. On the surface, he's a golden boy. He's clean cut. He's polite. He's really well spoken. But definitely behind, I would say, that polished exterior, there is quite a traumatic childhood, guys. It was next level. Like, it was insane what he went through. Not what I would ever want any child to go through. His family's really far from idyllic. His father, Kenneth, was really disturbed. He was charged with child molestation and was known to spy on his neighbours through their windows, so he was a peeping Tom. But even more disturbing, he was sexually abusing his own daughter, which was Paul's older sister. His mother, Marilyn, she comes from a fairly wealthy family, but lived in a lot of emotional isolation. So after she discovered that Paul was the result of an extramarital affair, she kind of withdrew from her son completely because she saw him as everything that she didn't want. She's apparently retreated to the basement of their home. She rarely interacted with the family and really just left Paul to be raised in a really cold and emotionally sort of environment that did not do well for his mental health at all. Despite this, he puts up the facade of being a very normal human. He's a Boy Scout, he's a good student, he's got part-time jobs, but beneath that surface, he's got some really disturbing fantasies. It's control, it's domination, it's violence, things we've all seen before. His late teens, he starts idealizing serial killers and begins to blur the lines between that fantasy and reality again. Now we've got Karla Homolka. She was born on May 4th in 1970 in Port Credit in Ontario. She's the eldest of 3 daughters. She's got a really stable middle-class family. It's really, by most accounts, really, really normal. She's bright, she's outgoing, she's got a really deep love for animals, so she would even work part-time at a pet store. She's described as confident, well-liked. She's the kind of girl who she got good grades, she's following all the rules, but apparently she's got quite the darker side as well. And it's a fascination with control and a willingness to sort of manipulate those around her to get what she wanted. Now, when she meets Paul at a hotel convention in 1987, she's only 17 years old. He would be 23. Their attraction, everybody describes it as almost instantaneous. It's magnetic, it's dangerous, it's really, really intense. But from that moment on, Karla's life is going to change forever. Now, she would fall under Paul's spell, and together they're going to descend into a world of pretty much cruelty and sadism. Now, 2 childhoods, one's marked with abuse and emotional neglect. The other one's got a hunger for control. Paul and Karla, they meet. It's like a match to gasoline. Their past didn't just shape them. They ignited something far more terrifying. Now, I'm going to tell you this, guys. Karla is not an innocent victim in any of this at all. She is not. We're going to talk about sort of more throughout the podcast, but she is one manipulative woman. It is insane. The things she does. Now, she had 2 sisters. One of the things that she did to her own sister is absolutely disgusting. Next level disgusting. So just prepare yourselves. There is a little bit of quite graphic content in this one. They look like the perfect couple, young, attractive, they're charismatic. And to the outside world, Paul and Karla, they're the embodiment of romance, a modern day Ken and Barbie. You can see in the background, guys, the perfect wedding, all that kind of stuff. But behind those closed doors, their relationship's anything but idyllic. It's a union. It's really based on a lot of manipulation, obsession, and a real appetite for both of them for cruelty. It all begins in October 1987. Karla's just 17 years old. She's at a pet convention in Scarborough. Paul, he's 23. He's there on business. Their eyes meet across at a hotel restaurant. Their chemistry is instant. She's drawn to his confidence, his charm, his good looks. Paul, on the other hand, he sees something in Karla, someone he could easily dominate. And from the very beginning, their relationship was intense. He quickly revealed his dark sexual fantasies, and she didn't even flinch at them. Instead, she actually leaned into it. And what started as like role play and submission, it would soon escalate into something far more sinister. Now, Paul at this stage is already leading a double life. By the time he met Karla, he'd begun his crime wave, we're going to call it, as the Scarborough rapist. He's attacking women near bus stops, dark alleyways. But with Karla, he would actually find a partner who didn't just tolerate his violence. She would actually enable it and bring it out even more. His submission wasn't passive. She's actively participating in all of his fantasies. She would even offer up her own sister Tammy as a gift to him. It's a disgusting gesture of devotion, and it's going to end in some pretty horrible tragedy. But just looking at this from the outside, right, guys? This is a couple that look from the outside like just the embodiment of everything that you sort of would expect in the 80s, like a powerhouse couple sort of as such. I just want to give you a little bit of background as well from the documentary that I watched and all that kind of stuff. He would almost instantly just become ingrained in her life. Her parents had a rule that they weren't allowed to be in the same room because she's obviously, they wouldn't be allowed to sleep in the same room. She's 17 years old. Obviously, that's not appropriate, all those kind of things. But he would obviously, as a man does and as a girl at that age, sneak into rooms and all that kind of stuff. But it's almost, I think it wasn't even 6 months. The parents loved so much and thought so much of him that they wouldn't even sort of blink. And that would be when they would start sharing a bedroom and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting to see that dynamic in the respect of with parents and stuff like that, because I'm not sure at that age my mum and dad would have ever allowed something like that. I can't see it happening. That's me personally, but it's definitely really interesting. My little puppies are sleeping at the moment. Okay. So, sorry, went off on a tangent there. Their relationship is built on power and control. He's dominating her emotionally, physically, and psychologically. She's not a victim. She ends up becoming a perpetrator. Now, there is parts where she's marked in violence, right? It's quite disgusting what he did to her as well. Together, they're going to create a world of torture and rape that are not just fantasies, but they come almost ritualistic. In June 1991, they were married in a gorgeous ceremony in Niagara. It's on the lake. She wears a white gown. He's looked every bit like the Prince Charming. They're toasting to their future, unaware that just hours earlier that Leslie Mahaffy had been found in Lake Gibson. This is where the contrast is quite chilling. While family and friends are celebrating their love, there are investigators in parallel uncovering evidence of a murder. The wedding was just a performance, a mask worn by two killers that had already taken 2 lives and were about to take more. Inside their home, the violence continues. Karla would claim that she'd been abused, beaten, and coerced. And while there's evidence that Paul was violent towards her, the videotapes that they recorded tell a very different story. We're going to come back to that. She's not just present. She's participating, she's laughing, she's directing, she's assisting. It's a criminal bond. They're feeding off each other's darkness, pushing each other's boundaries, escalating their crimes. It's a partnership that blurred the lines between love and sadism. Paul and Karla, they're not just lovers, they're co-conspirators. Their marriage, it's not really a celebration of love, right? It actually is a pact of violence and what they can do to women and girls. Now, as their crimes grow more brutal, that facade starts to crack and the perfect couple eventually fall. But in every true crime story, there's a risk of focusing on way too much on our perpetrators, on their psychology, their motives, their twisted love stories. But today I'm just going to pause for a little bit and we're going to shift to highlight what truly matters and what I've spoken about many, many times. It's the victims. Because Tammy, Leslie, and Kristen, they're more than just names in a case file and on a podcast. They're daughters, they're sisters, they're friends, and they deserve to be remembered. Now you've got Karla's younger sister, who's Tammy Homolka. She was born in January in 1975, and she grew up in the Port Credit neighborhood. She's the youngest of the 3 daughters, and with her older sister, Karla, who would actually become infamous because she was linked to her death. Now, Tammy was known for loving athletics. She's got a really vibrant personality. She participates in sports in track and field, cross-country running, soccer. Apparently, soccer was actually her favourite sport to play. And at the time of her death, she was actually in year 10 or grade 10, and she's attending a secondary school in St. Catherine's. But her life would tragically end on December 24th in 1990. Now, this is just days before her 16th birthday. Her death was initially ruled an accident, choking on her own vomit, but later investigators would reveal a far more sinister truth. She was actually the victim of Paul and Karla, and she was the first victim. They conspired to drug and sexually assault her. Karla, who worked at a vet clinic at that stage, stole halothane. It's a powerful anesthetic, which was used alongside halcyon and alcohol to sedate her. So on the night of Christmas Eve, while the rest of the family slept upstairs, Tammy was raped in the basement. The couple would actually film this attack, and it would use that halothane soaked cloth to keep her unconscious. Now, Tammy would begin to choke on her own vomit during the assault, and despite numerous attempts to revive her, she would actually die. Now, Paul and Karla would then stage the scene. They'd redress her, move her to her bedroom, and would call emergency services. She was actually pronounced dead at the hospital. Now, Tammy, along with the family, he'd been told by her parents that she could have a couple of drinks, and Paula and Karla were sort of feeding her these drinks throughout the night, and this is when it just escalated. But This is just depravity at its worst, as far as I'm concerned. That's your own family. The reason, though, behind why they picked Tammy, this is the part that actually, well, no, it all appalls me, but this part in particular does. It just disgusts me. Paul wasn't happy because Karla wasn't a virgin before he met her, and he sort of wanted someone that innocent and that someone who could, I don't know, idolize him or whatever was pure in his mind. So Karla, to placate him, decided to offer her sister. So that to me is just, what kind of sick love do you have that you think that's okay? No. But the full extent of Karla's involvement, right? It only comes to light in a couple of years. It's during her plea bargain and her psychiatric assessments. In the worst type of violation, they would film a video called the Fireside Chat in Tammy's bedroom, where Karla would actually dress up in Tammy's clothes and reenact her sister's personality and persona during sex with him. Now, Tammy is buried in Victoria Lawn Cemetery in a really disturbing twist. Her grave was found to contain a wedding invitation to Karla and Paul's wedding, placed there by Karla herself. Tammy's death, it was once thought that it was just a tragic accident. It becomes a pivotal moment, though, in the criminal case, and it reveals pretty quickly the depravity behind these two. Now, the next victim is Leslie Erin Mahaffy. She is just 14 years old. She's a wonderful teenager from Burlington, Ontario. She's the second victim. But before she became, the victim of these two, she was a daughter, she was a sister, and a young girl that was full of dreams and full of promise. She's known as we'll get to that actually. Leslie's born in July 1976. She lived in Burlington with her family. Her father worked as an oceanographer for the Federal Fisheries and Oceans Department. He's often traveling for weeks at a time. Her mother was a teacher. She's very nurturing, intelligent, and deeply devoted to her children. She had a younger brother by the name of Ryan, and the two were actually very close. Even as she grew older and began spending more time away from home, she did always keep in touch, though, calling home regularly and checking in on Ryan. Now, she was in grade 9 or year 9, and like many teens, she wore braces, and she's navigating sort of those ups and downs of adolescence. She'd experienced most recently a tragic loss of one of her friends to a car accident, and the night before her abduction she'd actually attended a memorial for one of them. At this stage, Leslie's being a little bit, and she's just pushing the boundaries like every teenager sort of does at that age. So on the night of her abduction, she would actually miss her curfew, and when she arrived home, she'd actually found the side door locked. So her friends walked her home, stayed with her briefly, and she assured them that she was going to be fine. She's unable to get inside, though, and Leslie walked to a nearby plaza to use a payphone. She'd call a friend to ask if she could, stay over, but that friend said no. After a long conversation, though, she says she's going to return home and she's going to wake her mum. She never makes it back, though. Paul was prowling around the neighbourhood looking into backyards for his next victim because he's disgusting. He saw Leslie alone. There's sort of different accounts on this one. Paul would claim he lured her into the car with a cigarette, while Karla would say he actually pulled a knife on her. Either way, she is abducted and taken to the house where Karla and Paul lived. Now, apparently she was held for almost 24 hours. It's during that time that she was repeatedly raped, sodomized, and videotaped. This whole entire time they're videotaping. Paul and Karla gave her a teddy bear to hold between assaults. It's what they wanted to give her some comfort. What a grotesque way to think that would make her feel better. Leslie is going through hell and you give her a teddy bear as a form of comfort. You are disgusting. Now, again, Karla, she's a veterinary technician. She used sedatives to subdue Leslie. It's the same method that she used with Tammy months earlier. She was murdered sometime around June 15th. Karla would claim that Paul strangled her with an electric cord. Paul would later say that she died while he was preparing to release her, claim that is wildly disputed. And by the way, you are not going to let her go when she's seen your face. Mate, everybody knows that. Unfortunately, so this is where it gets a little bit dark, guys. Her body was moved to the basement, and while Leslie is dead downstairs, they host a family dinner for Father's Day. Karla made a special effort to keep her mother from going downstairs. After the guests leave, though, the couple used Paul's grandfather's circular saw to dismember her body. Her remains were encased in concrete and they're dumped in Lake Gibson. It's on June 29th in 1991, the same day that Paul and Karla were married, that her remains were discovered. Her braces and dental records would actually confirm her identity. Now, it's Leslie's mother, Debbie, that became a fierce advocate for justice. She fought to maintain the judge's gag order on the trial and the videotapes, determined to protect her daughter's dignity. The Mahaffy family buried her under a family headstone at the Burlington Memorial Gardens. A heart-shaped garden and memorial bench were placed in her honour at her high school. Her family have never really stopped breathing, and they've never stopped fighting for truth and for justice and for her memory. Because Leslie is not just a victim. She's a daughter, she's a sister, she's a student, she's a friend to people. And her life was stolen in an act of cruelty that really defies any type of comprehension for a normal human being. But thankfully, her memory lives on in her family's love, in her community, and it's in the hearts of those who, refuse to forget who she is. Now, our third and final victim is a murder victim. I'm going to say murder victims because I've got to tell you guys, there is a suspected amount of other victims. I'm not going to go through them on this podcast because there is just a bucket load and then none of them are sort of confirmed. So I don't know if I want to go through victims that are potential victims because I would rather know that they can be spoken for. I'm just going to try and avoid talking about that kind of stuff, unless it's like potentially investigations are still going on. But it appears to me that those investigations aren't going on in the back. Now, our next victim is Kristen French. She was born on May 10th in 1970 in St. Catharines in Ontario. Now, she's the second daughter of Doug and Donna French, and she's known for her strong will, her love of athletics, and compassion. She's really bright. She's an active teenager. She's deeply involved in a lot of her school community. So she's a member of the ice skating team. She won several awards and medals in this, and she also participated in the girls' rowing team. In April 1992, she's walking home from school, just like she did every other day, and her route would take her past a church. It's a church parking lot, basically. She's approached apparently by Karla, who pretended to need help with directions. Now, she would hold up a map, and Karla played the role of the confused stranger. Now, as she leaned in to assist her, Paul would emerge from behind and force her into the car at knife point. Karla held Kristen's hair down to prevent her escape as they drove away. But several eyewitnesses saw this abduction. Her shoe was found at the scene, which helped confirm the location and the time of her disappearance. Her parents reported her missing that evening when she actually failed to return home. She was held captive for 3 days in their home. During this time, same thing, she is subjected to repeated rapes, psychological torment, physical abuse, and I think pretty much all of it is actually videotaped by the couple. She was forced to consume bucket loads of alcohol, and the abuse was it was sadistic and next level, guys. It was pretty disgusting. Now, despite the horror that she actually endured, she would show remarkable courage and defiance. She refused to cooperate with them, and telling Paul, I don't know how your wife can stand being around you. Some things are worth dying for. This was on the videotape. On April 19th in 1992, she was strangled to death and her body was found on April 30th, dumped in a ditch like on a side road in Burlington, which is about 45 minutes from St. Catharines. Her body had been washed, her hair had been cut off, which Karla would later testify was done to hinder her identification. But the pathologist was confirmed that Kristen had died from strangulation, that the murder was the third and final of the series of Karla and Paul. And that was obviously following the murders of Tammy and Leslie. The reason the case became one of the most notorious criminal investigations in Canadian history. It draws national attention. It sparks massive amounts of outrage. We're going to get to why it comes to outrage. And let me tell you, I was absolutely outraged over this. My poor husband had to sit there and listen to me rant for about 10 minutes on this. So in response to her disappearance, Kristen's classmates and teachers at Holy Cross Secondary School, they launched something called the Green Ribbon of Hope campaign. And that's became a national symbol for missing children. The campaign was later adopted by Child Find Canada, and the Green Ribbon Trail in St. Catharines commemorates Kristen's life and her legacy. Now, Tammy, Leslie, Kristen, these are not just victims. They're vibrant, they're really alive girls at this stage. Their lives are full of promise. Their deaths were brutal, senseless, and really quite unforgivable, if you ask me. And we speak their names not to relive their horror, but to honour their memory, to remind ourselves that behind every crime, there are lives lost. Now, families have been shattered, and further, it's just not, we just must remember them for not how they died, but for who they are. And these girls were very alive. So in the background, you can see that I've been creating videos for them. So that's who they were when they were alive. It's by early 1993, the mask is really slipping. So behind that suburban facade of the household lay a darkness that had already claimed 3 young lives, right? But it wasn't the police that would end up cracking the case. It's actually Karla. She confesses. So she's been absolutely beaten. Karla has been beaten and abused for the last time. She goes home. She goes home to her parents and she tells her family absolutely everything. Paul's not just abusive. He's the Scarborough rapist. He's murdered Leslie and Kristen and Karla. She's helped him through all of it. Her family was stunned and appalled. They've contacted the police immediately. They reopened pretty quickly Tammy's death. And because they suspected that it was something far more sinister. Now, on February 17th in 1993, Paul was arrested. Now, these charges were a staggering first-degree murder, kidnapping, aggravated sexual assault, and more. Karla is arrested shortly after. She, though, is disgusted. She strikes a plea deal. Now, she agreed to testify against her husband in exchange for a 12-year sentence for manslaughter. A 12-year sentence for what she did. At the time, they believed, prosecutors that is, believed that she was a victim. She's been coerced, she's been manipulated, she's been broken, she's all of these things because, this man, he beat her for years and he did all these horrible things. They hadn't seen those disgusting videotapes yet. Hidden behind a light fixture in their home were some videotapes. Paul's first lawyer found them in May 1993. 2 months before her plea deal has been finalised. And he didn't turn them over until September 1994. Isn't that the most disgusting thing, Mr. Frickin' Lawyer? So they showed Karla and Paul raping and torturing all the girls. Leslie, Kristen, Tammy. It's really graphic, guys. It's disturbing and it's damning. And I've got to say, I don't think in the documentaries that I've watched, it's in there, and I think the gag order might be still on because of Leslie's mum. And I've got to tell you, I don't know if I could watch something like that. I can watch a lot of true crime stuff, guys, but I don't think I could watch that. That, for me, I don't know if I could. Yeah, no, I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch people being tortured. I can watch something like Hostage and horror films and stuff like that, but when it's a real life person, it hits differently. So in one segment, apparently, Kristen is seen bound at her wrists and her ankles, and her school uniform is still on. Her head is leaning against her chest, and loud rap music is going on in the background as Paul is berating and yelling at her. He orders Karla to perform sexual acts with force. She's seen to be crying, and then Paul forces her to apologize for calling him a bastard. She pleads, "You are my master. I am very sorry. I should be punished. You deserve all the girls at my school." This is the last time you actually see her alive. The tapes would show Karla performing a striptease for him and saying she just wanted to please her man. Another tape showed them having sex with a prostitute just 2 months after Kristen's murder. These tapes, they're not just evidence. They're a window of that depravity of those two people, and they had all this evil behind all that charm and beauty, but unfortunately, that deal had already been made with Karla. His trial begins in May 1995. By the way, I might add, when he's arrested, he gives his DNA. What did he think he was going to do? That it wasn't going to match him? So I don't know if he was that arrogant that he thought he could get away with it. The courtroom apparently was really tense. A publication ban kept the public from seeing the tapes, but the jury, the lawyers, they watched every second of those tapes. Reporters would actually describe the jurors as weeping and openly crying. Some even had to leave the room. Even seasoned detectives struggled to remain composed. Some of them haven't even been able to watch the full videos. Paul claimed the deaths were accidental. He even tried to shift the blame to Karla, but the tapes would tell a very different story. In September 1995, he's convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping and aggravated sexual assault, and more. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole and later declared a dangerous offender, ensuring that he would never be released. Karla's plea deal actually stood. Despite the tapes, despite all clear participation, she only served 12 years and she was released in 2005. The public called it a deal with the devil. Prosecutors admitted that they would have never agreed to that deal had they been able to see those tapes first. The tapes were eventually destroyed by court order, but the legacy really remains. They exposed that horror, they shattered the illusion, and they forced Canada to confront some pretty dark areas of the justice system. When Kristen and Leslie were taken and tortured and murdered, it's not just their lives that they ended. It was the beginning of some pretty lifelong sentences for those families. A sentence of grief, and it's a sentence of, memory and fighting to ensure that those daughters are never forgotten. Kristen's mother, Donna French, actually said, "Time doesn't heal the pain, but the pain is a life sentence." It's echoed at every parole hearing, every media interview, every anniversary of their daughters' deaths. The families of Kristen and Leslie and Tammy have become advocates, not just for their children, but for all victims of violent crimes. Karla's family refuses to talk to her just because of what she did, which, by the way, you deserve so much worse. So much worse. In the wake of Kristen's murder, her classmates and teachers, they've created that Green Ribbon of Hope campaign. I think that at least some good came out of that, and I think that it's a really embodiment of who Kristen was from everything that I've read. The Ontario government actually formed the Green Ribbon Task Force, and that's a dedicated unit to investigate the murders. It was one of the largest and most collaborative efforts in Canadian policing history. It involved local forces, the FBI, and forensic experts. It took them almost 2 years. From the time that he was arrested, it took them about 2 years to get DNA results. They took a long time to bring him to trial. There was a lot involved with that task force. So there was so much investigation that they wanted to make sure that they nailed it, especially given what the plea deal they'd given Karla. They wanted to make sure he was going to suffer. It's her plea deal. It sparked national outrage, as it should have, because once those videotapes have surfaced, it showed her being an active participant in the crimes. And the public demanded answers pretty quickly. How could someone so involved receive such a light sentence? The case would expose flaws in the justice system. In recent years, Paul has applied for parole twice. Each time, thankfully, the victims' families, they've stood before the board reading impact statements that speak of their pain, memory. Donna French has turned around and said there are no words that can capture the depth of our loss, anguish, and despair. Debbie Mahaffy, another violation. Like, that's what it felt like for her. They've called for changes in parole laws, asking that hearings be spaced out further and not held during the anniversary months of the crimes. 100%. Paul remains incarcerated. She was released in jail, as I said before, in 2005. She's trying to live a quiet life. Public, they have not forgotten who she is. So she's got 3 children. I believe she's been married. It's just, you got to move on, man. Your sister is dead. So, hate to say this, I wish her the worst type of things that can happen to a person. Because you did that to young girls and your own sister. So, as far as I'm concerned, Karla, you should rot. Rot in hell. A lot. Sorry, guys. But thank you for joining us on this episode of Crimes from the Peanut Gallery. If you liked this story as much as I did, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment. Stay tuned for our next episode where I'm going to delve into another dark and twisted serial killer. Until then, stay safe, stay vigilant, and have a fabulous weekend, my fellow peanuts. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.